Your story influences your business. This is Wingrove Street, an entrepreneurial leaders podcast where we hear the story behind the startup, brought to you by Melbourne Innovation Centre.
Melbourne Innovation Centre provides business support and mentorship. This week, we talk to Jo Chanyang, a brand designer, coach, and owner of her own design studio. Jo tells us her story from going from being a chemical engineer onto being a graphic designer. Jo uses intelligent design solutions within her work and shares her top business tips. Now onto the podcast. Jo is a brand designer, coach, and owner of her own design studio, Jo Chanyang. Jo specialises in rebranding businesses to help them scale and grow, and has created intelligent design solutions for over 40 brands in the wellness industry. Jo also brings her 6 years of extensive experience in product and packaging, product rebrands and marketing, successfully launching new products for the FMCG, food and wellness space within Australia and overseas. Welcome to the podcast.
Yay! Thank you so much for having me.
So good to see you.
Likewise.
So I guess we want to start from the very beginning. Can you tell us a little bit about your personal journey? How did you first get into the design space? Like, what led you there?
Yeah, so I was actually a chemical engineering student, and I was doing a double degree in chemical engineering and pharmacology. And it wasn't until the final year that I got a little bit of an intuitive nudge to explore something that was a little bit more creative. So engineering and pharmacology is typically very rational problem solving, and it's great. It's just one part of my brain that I really love to use. But then I was like, there is something more about the other side of my brain that I really wanted to explore as well. So I got this desire to sign up for a graduate diploma in graphic design. And at the time it was a big decision because I was already doing a 5-year degree, and then this would add another extra year onto it. So it was going to extend it a little bit, but it was also a bit more money. And I also didn't really know at the time whether it was going to lead to anything further down the track or whether it was just something that I was exploring just for the sake of enjoyment. But luckily, after doing the course, I remember the first lecture. I still remember the first lecture of sitting down at RMIT, and our professor at the time took us through the history of art and how it became design. And I felt this amazing sense of, oh my gosh, I'm in the right space. And it was so exciting. So I knew from that moment onwards that I wanted to do something, whether it was somehow related or indirectly related. I wanted to have something to do with design. And so by the time I graduated, I worked for FMCG companies like Unilever, and was based in Coles head office for a number of years, and also with Twinings. A lot of the decisions I made throughout my career have always led to things that were more marketing or branding led, just because it just resonated a little bit more with the creative side. So after 6 years doing that, I ended up going overseas, and I started.
Whereabouts did you go overseas?
Oh yeah,
you're kind of missing out an important part.
So I assume that you knew based on our lovely discussions in the past, but I actually went to Japan, and when I was there, of course, Japan being Japan is so inspiring with like packaging design and graphic design in general. So I ended up starting my own business when I was there, and that gave me actually a lot of space to build it up because I was already in this new country. And I wasn't working full-time at that stage. I was studying part-time. So it gave me the freedom and flexibility to really build it up. And then I kind of, took it full-time as soon as I came back to Melbourne. And it's been my baby ever since.
It's such a nice story. Like it's so like amazing from being a chemical engineer to doing graphic design.
Yeah.
Like I love how you love using both parts of your brain.
Yeah.
So it's very cool.
Yeah. And design is already really, I mean, it is creative, but it is also very rational because it's also about problem solving. So I think it allows me to tap into both at the same time.
So was there like a aha moment when you realized that you needed to create your own design practice? Like you realized in Japan, but what made you realize to start your own business?
That's a really good question. My aha moment, I think probably was made up of a number of mini aha moments along the way, just because I think every time I was moving towards starting my own, not necessarily starting my own business at the time, but doing something that made sense for me, whether it was signing up for graphic design, whether it was quitting my job and moving to Japan, whether it was studying like a coaching course because I was really interested in that. Every time I did that, I received so much back for it, not necessarily money related or anything like that, but it was just a sense of me feeling more aligned and feeling like I was doing something that was serving others in a way that felt really exciting and motivating. So I think the culmination of all those mini ahas led to the big one aha of me being like, okay, I feel like I need to really put the show on the road and sort of put my money where my mouth was. That's what led to me starting my own studio.
So can you tell us a little bit more about what your business does?
Yeah, so we do intentional branding and we work with companies, or when I say we, it's just me because it's a one-person studio at this stage, but I would love to explore expanding it in future. But I work with companies in the wellness space. So a lot of holistic yoga teachers, healers, counselors, psychologists, and also companies in the health food space as well. And I help them create a brand identity or a visual brand identity that really captures the essence of who they are and what their business is all about.
How do you go about that process? Like, how do you capture someone's brand identity?
Yeah, it's a good question, isn't it? Because branding is such a broad concept for a lot of people and it's not very easy to understand. So there's lots of things that make up the brand. So I feel like for me, I come in from a visual perspective. So I look at the brand identity, which includes the logo, the colors, all of that. But in order to actually make that happen, it's really about exploring and helping the client or helping my clients understand exactly who they are. So really going back to the story of why they started their business, understanding their bigger vision, their mission as well, which is different to the mission, different to the vision, what their objectives are, who they want to speak to, who their clients or their customers are, and what their offerings are in the world and how they want to serve. And from that, we also weave in a lot of the work around brand personality. So really understanding how their business walks and talks and moves around the world. If that brand was a person, how would it make other people feel? And from that, we're able to actually use their brand personality as a bit of a guide for creating a visual experience of that. So, for example, maybe their brand personality is all about freedom. So it's like if they want to make people feel free, what visual aspects would you need to decide to be able, I guess not decide, but what visual aspects could you control in some way that can convey that sense of freedom? So it might be like the layout of something or the colors that you use or the textures that you use. All of those things have a story that arc back to the feelings that you want people to feel. So I think it's all about the feelings at that stage, but it's really coming from that bigger story of understanding their personality, their vision, and their goals as a company as well.
I think it's such a nice way of creating a brand identity from their story and articulating that through design. It's such an important part of the business. How how did you kind of fall into the wellness industry? Because you seem to have a lot of clients that are, like you said, yoga teachers and Reiki and wellness practitioners. So how did you find that niche? Like, how did that come about?
I think this came about because I am naturally interested in it as well. So it's just something that I've always been endlessly fascinated in. And I think you effortlessly are going to talk and resonate with the people that are also interested in similar things because you share that common connection point. And so the more that I was doing branding for clients who were from the wellness industry or businesses related to health and wellness, the more that I loved working and doing what I was doing. So it hopefully serves them as much as it serves me, but it's just something that really fulfills me at the end of the day and just came very naturally and organically, I would say.
Oh, that's so nice. Like it's nice when it just all comes together easily. And also you've written a book about in the mindfulness space.
So I've written a book called The Intuition Journal. So it's actually more, I would say, like a guided journal or more like a workbook. And it's really just to help people deep dive and uncover or unravel their thoughts so that they can find some sort of insight into who they really are. So again, it's that aspect of helping people find the essence of who they are. I think that for me seems to be the thing that keeps popping up over and over again, whether I work with clients in coaching or in a book form or with my clients when it comes to branding. But the journal is really dear to my heart and has been something that I feel is definitely helping people who might not be in the wellness industry per se. They might be interested in that kind of work. They might be interested in yoga, but they might not necessarily be that as well. So it's a bit of it's a product for a broader audience. I would say.
Yeah, it sounded like a really lovely concept. Like I think, especially when you're a business owner and you're not sure what your voice is, it sounds like a good tool that they could use. One of the things you were talking about in our previous conversation that we had just before the show started is that you use intelligent design solutions. Can you tell us what is it, intelligent design solutions, and like how can this help a business?
So for me, the way that I interpreted my own words is that it's strategic. So it's intelligent but strategic at the same time. And I think overall, I would like it to be conscious. So
can you give us an example
as
maybe?
As an example, I think sometimes it can be easy to look at design purely from a perspective of aesthetics, what looks great, what looks like everything, like the colors are looking well and like they're going together or they're pairing well with the fonts and everything's beautiful. But then I think there is a deeper strategy. So again, it's going back to the essence of the brand and making sure that everything feels aligned so that when you're going through a branding process, or when I'm going through a branding process with a client, they know that every decision that we've made goes back to something that resonates deeply for them in their business. So that it's not being made just because we want something to fill the space. There is a conscious decision behind each and every decision. I think that actually came a lot from my lecturers at RMIT, because they taught a lot about the minimalism or the essentialism behind design. So if you're not requiring something, it needs to go, and you can kind of Marie Kondo it out of the design in a sense.
It's a good use of terminology. I love that. Marie Kondo.
New verb for the day. And if it is something that actually anchors or helps people anchor back further into the brand, then you should keep it. So everything has a functional purpose for being, not just aesthetic purpose for being.
That sounds so integral and important, because there are a lot of, I have known a lot of businesses that are like, oh, we'll just do that font, we'll just do that because it's pretty.
Yeah.
But they don't realize that there's a deeper meaning behind it that can
Yes.
help, uplift the business to another level.
Yeah,
So I like that intelligent thinking and strategic thinking. For every decision, there's a reason why and there's a core value behind it. It's
Yeah.
lovely. So I guess I wanted to ask a little bit more about your business and if you had any pain points with growing your business or any obstacles that you kind of went through, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I think the main pain point or challenge, I would say, is going through the feast or famine cycle. And I think this is probably more so for service-based businesses rather than maybe product-based businesses, although there is naturally a seasonality to when people buy products as well. But I think as a designer, it's really common to hear from other designers as well that they'll get booked out like months in advance, and then they'll be like working late nights and into the early hours of the morning. But then after a period of working consistently, they'll find that they don't have any clients. And it's because they haven't continuously marketed their business and kept those new leads coming through. So this is more like business strategy rather than branding strategy. But I think with the marketing side of things, that's still really important to have sustainability in terms of your processes so that things feel like they're moving behind the scenes, even if you're busy and you're working with a lot of clients. So the way that I've been trying to overcome this, I haven't got there quite yet. I'm still like in the muck of it. But I think the main thing for me has been to hire people, or at least even bring on someone to help you with your business. So I have my VA who helps me with like the accounts and like some of the invoicing and bits and pieces like social media sort of stuff. And it means that I don't have to do that. And that's been a huge help. I would also say that when you're bringing someone on, there is going to be a transition period before they can feel completely comfortable working in your business. So it's just good to ensure that that's part of the whole process as well, that you don't drop people into your business assuming that they're going to know exactly what's going on, because there needs to be a lot of communication as we go through. So yeah, I would say that's one thing that I've done, which has helped tremendously. And also I think having something that my friend and I call like our VIP day, or like our sort of CEO day, is something that we do. It's not that special. It's just like basically taking one day every week where you work on your business rather than work on your client work or your,
Yep.
Yeah. So it's like
That's a good idea.
all of that admin stuff, all of the like little bits, all the sort of, what do you call it? Like, loose ends that you need to tie up. That's really good just to have that done on your CEO days so that you've got space. I do this on a Monday because I feel like Mondays can be a little bit more stressful for me. So I like having that extra space on a Monday just to ease into the week, knowing that I've got all my loose ends tied up, or as much as I could do. And then I can kind of go into the rest of the week knowing that I've got a pretty good sense of where the week's going to go.
Sounds like a really smart thing to do in a business, like, because a lot of the time, you do get a bit not sidetracked or distracted, but like focused on your clients.
Yeah.
And it's so important to set aside some time just for your business to re-strategize for yourself. Hey, is this where I want to go? Am I going in the right direction?
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good piece of advice for our listeners as well.
Reviewing. Yeah, it's really important. And I think a lot of people so used to just working that it's hard for us to take that step back and really just pause and reflect on, as you say, like what's going well, what needs to change, what are the processes that we can improve on.
Have you felt that your business has changed a lot since you first started?
Yeah, heaps, I think. Yeah. Yeah, it's always on a like never-ending evolutionary cycle of change, I think. Yeah.
I guess that's, most businesses too, but yeah.
It's a good thing as well. Yeah.
I guess the other thing I want to ask you about is, do you have any proud moments that you have achieved with your work? Is it?
Yeah. I think like bringing out my book would have been like one of the proudest moments, but it took time for that to sink in, because I can be very critical of myself. I have very high expectations of myself. And I remember when I saw the book published and it was in my hands, I was like so scared of the fact that I had made it.
Why?
And it was
What was it?
It was the weirdest thing. I have no idea why I reacted in that way, but I just like almost wanted to run away because I was so afraid of what that meant, because I put so much time and energy into it, and it was really confronting to see your work that you've put so much time and effort into become a real thing. I think it's different from the branding work that I did, because that a lot of it goes to a client, it's something that is not mine. So I'm not as attached personally to it. Even though I'm attached to the work, I can kind of step away from it and I can hand it over and see them like have that whole full experience of receiving it. But when it's your own work and it comes back to you, and you've designed it, it feels really weird. I don't know what it is. I've never experienced it before. And I think it just took maybe like a year, I would say. Shockingly, it took like a year before I felt like I was comfortable looking at the book and even like flipping through it properly, right? Because I was so scared of like picking up like silly little mistakes and things like that.
Yeah, we're always our own worst critics,
critic.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it looked like a really beautiful book. So you should be very proud.
Thank you.
I guess the last question I want to ask is, do you have any tools or tips that you could share with us that might help other businesses? Something that you use a lot that you think, your business can't live without, or...
Yeah, I think for me, it's really having that space to reflect on where your business needs to go, and even doing that on a monthly basis. So I have this thing where it's part of the journaling process that I use, but I do this on a monthly basis where I go through my business and I write down everything that I want to do for the next 13 weeks. And I plan it also by month, by year as well. So I'm very into like the planning side of things. But by doing that, it gives me this bigger perspective of where I want to grow, like how I want to grow in my business, where I want to take that, how I want to serve others in the next 13 weeks. There's enough space so that you feel like you've got time to do all those things, but it doesn't feel like it's a year or 2 years where you don't have sort of defined goals or defined dates in place. So I think 13 weeks works really well for me. I write down all the things that I feel like are achievable and doable, and then I write down a separate list of all the things that are going to be like exciting if I wanted to do that as well. So yeah, that would be just like a tip for people, just to take the time at the start of every month just to see where it is that you want to take your business and write those things down so you can achieve it.
That sounds like a really good and very helpful tool. Like planning is always a good
Planning
one.
is great, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being with us here today. So if our listeners want to find out a little bit more about you, where can they go?
Yeah, so I'm over at joechanyan.com, and also you can find me on Instagram at joechanyan as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again, and
Thank you.
looking forward to sharing your wonderful words of wisdom with our listeners.
Oh, thanks, Nadia. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Wingrove Street. This podcast is brought to you by the Melbourne Innovation Centre. If you are a small business or startup in need of support, we're here to help. We offer services and support across Victoria to accelerate your business growth. To find out more, head to www.melbourneinnovation.com.au.